Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. In today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to take the 3/4 front view that I initially completed for this image and how I take that image and I actually turn it into the side view. The side view is generally a very important view because it helps establish a lot of the general proportions, and also it's one of the main orthographic views that you would use in 3D modeling. This, coupled with the front-back view, generally helps give 3D modelers all the information they need to model an object in 3D. So it is very important to be as accurate as possible while actually staying true and making something look good visually. So as you can see, I started off with breaking down my initial drawing into basic shapes, and once I had that, then I did the same thing but for the side view. I then began roughing out really loosely the general structure that I was going to start working on. Once I had that rough aspect in place, I was able to refer to my original image and my current rough sketch to get a good feeling for the shapes and forms that I would actually be working on. So right now I'm essentially just starting to refine some of the general shapes that I'm seeing in my initial concept for this image. So obviously I'm working on multiple layers and then condensing them as I go to help remove any bottleneck for the image and reduce the file size in general. So a really important portion is actually the front of the ship. It's probably the most technical portion because it has such complicated forms to it. So getting this to work correctly is very important because it helps establish the rest of the structure for the rest of the image. It also is extremely important for designing the front view, especially with this image because it's a highly technical image, and believe it or not, the front view actually took almost as long as the side view. This image in total, once I include both the recordings that I did on and offline, probably lasted about 6 to 8 hours. So it was a fairly time-consuming process, but it's something that really does pay off in the end if you're able to achieve a very realistic look. So as you can see, I'm working on the back portions now. These portions are generally easier because I can duplicate a lot of the material as I go. And I did that for the second level to make sure that it was the exact same size as what I had in below it. Now, working out the octopus tentacles, the easiest way to do this is I rough it out initially, and then on a separate layer I start actually refining the actual structure to get exactly what I want. Now I do know at this stage that I'm probably going to be duplicating the columns because it doesn't make sense to have to do them multiple times. So I'll be essentially establishing the first column, changing up the ratio so that it fits within the area I need it to, and then from there I added the octopus arms and just duplicated that. Now initially for this part here, I actually added a perspective to it. I ended up removing that in the end simply because the rest of the image is very flat. It's essentially a cheated perspective for the side view, but it's also more accurate when you're doing 3D modeling because the computer, especially in Maya, tends to actually just flatten out all the surfaces, so you get actually something that's more of a cheated perspective anyway, which is actually more similar to this. So working out the details in the top portion here, once again I work on the initial one, and then I just move over or duplicate the portion that I want. It depends on what's going to essentially be easier and more accurate at the same time, because I am trying to remain as accurate as I can to the initial image that I started. So this image was a far more technical image than what I've done with the spaceship. Mainly because of the structures involved. They're more organic to a certain extent, but they're also amalgamated with very technical aspects as well. So getting a good mixture between the two is really important. Once again, I'm constantly referring to my reference material. I believe at this point I actually started moving the ship design around my canvas so that I could actually see it closer to my initial 3/4 front view. This made it a lot easier to make comparisons on the go as I was working, and it made it also easier for me to quickly turn on and off that layer so that I can refer to it a bit faster. So I'm just bringing that a bit closer. Once again, I'm trying to get as accurate as I can, so tweaking things is very important because it helps give it more of a realistic look. For these details, it's really important to essentially count out how many detail elements there are and make sure that that's as true as possible. The only thing that I didn't do that for is essentially the mesh that's coming down from the mask. You'll see that much later in the image. Mainly because you wouldn't see very much of that information, but generally you would actually count out the exact number of lines that you would see. And in most cases, depending on what type of work is actually being done on it, in an animation perspective, you would actually simplify the structure entirely so that it's easier to animate. Now, I don't believe most companies actually animate complicated structures like these any longer. I believe they do rely a bit more on 3D, at least to a certain portion. But in the past, a lot of this was actually animated traditionally, and it was a very technical thing to do. So I'm just working on, essentially, these are the supports for the crew members as they're on the watch to make sure that everything's going good and repairs can easily be made. So I'm just working on the cables right now. I create the initial cable for the one mast and then duplicate that and move it around to make it work with the other two masts. And once I have this, I duplicate it again and then mask out any areas that would actually be hidden from the ship, because that's essentially the portion that's on the other side. So I'm just going to work on the pulley system, and I'm using the exact same technique I worked on last time. So I essentially just create the vector artwork for it and then stroke the line and then add manually in the cables to give it more of an organic look. And it does make a big difference in the final image. It looks much more realistic by doing that. Then I go in and I've actually added several masks to several different layers just to make sure that it works. So this is the final image. There's also the front and back view that you will be seeing in future videos. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.